This is the July 24th edition of the Dark Illumination Report Podcast Extra. And on today's episode, I'm going to be talking a little bit about the email I've gotten from you guys and the positive response I've gotten from you guys, and also give you a little bit of an idea of what's going to be coming up on the podcast in the next few weeks.
This is a Dark Illumination Report Extra with RJ Womack.
Hey everybody, thanks for joining me for another episode of the podcast. I'm glad you're here. This is Brother Nero, aka RJ Womack. This is the Dark Illumination Report podcast, the podcast where we promote the religious worship of Satan and demons as a serious faith and way of life, and we try to pass that on to young diabolists. On today's episode, I want to talk to you a little bit about the positive email I've been getting from people, and I want to encourage you to keep sending me your questions, your comments, all of that stuff, because it helps me to understand what you want from this podcast, how I can help you, and it also gives me encouragement to keep doing this podcast on a daily basis. So I really appreciate the positive words. And one of the things that really sticks out to me is how many of you have commented on how much you appreciate the daily podcast. I have to admit that it's a bit overwhelming simply because thinking about coming up with content for the next, say, year and doing it every day is kind of overwhelming, and it does kind of take your breath away in a way. But the fact is that so many of you find it such a positive, encouraging thing to have a podcast to look forward to every day. I intend to try and keep that up, not only because I promised Satan I would, but because I can see that to some of you it means a lot. And if it means a lot to you, then it means a lot to me. So I'm going to try to do my best. But the other thing I want to say to you is, I was so encouraged by how many of you think this is a very positive podcast. And I want to say that I really do believe that Satan is a positive entity, despite much of the negative press that he gets, and despite the negative attitude that many of the goth black metal kids seem to present about him. He generally, along with the other demonic spirits, in my opinion, are very positive entities. They expect a lot from their followers, but they also encourage them to be the best they can be. They don't encourage you to be mindless slaves like the Christian God. And if you want to define Satan as evil, I guess you could if you're defining him by the Christian concept of evil, because they think anything that's natural is evil. They think if you want to have money and you want to have power, you're evil. If you want to have lots of sex, you're evil. And, if you're ambitious, you're evil. So anything that is natural to us is considered evil by Christian standards. So if you ask if Satan's evil, well, yeah, I guess if you think everything that's natural is evil, then Satan's certainly evil. But I don't see Satan that way. I see him as a realist. I see him as an individual that understands how the world really works, how human nature really works, how nature works. And in the real world, we have to deal with life the way it is, not the way we wish it could be. And that's the big difference between Christians and Satanists. Christians wish the world was one way. They wish they weren't a part of this world. In fact, they're even taught in their text to not think about the things of this world, to not dwell on this world, to plan for the eternity to come after this world. Whereas Satanists, while we may believe in an afterlife, while we may believe that we're ultimately going to go and be with Satan in his kingdom, Satan doesn't ask us, nor does he expect us to have a disassociation with this world. In fact, he encourages us to indulge in this world and in the flesh. And he doesn't expect us to be any different. He knows we're mortal creatures with an immortal soul. And that's the difference between Satan, is that he accepts us for what we are. He accepts us for all of our flaws and all of our positive attributes, everything. He doesn't look at us as one-dimensional creatures. So I think we have to give him the same respect and realize he's not just this archetypal figure of the devil that the Christians have created. He's so much more than that. And he is a manifold entity with many faces. And you have to give him that respect. And you have to treat him that way. And since he has multiple facets to his personality, so must you, as one of his followers, have multiple facets to your personality. You must balance every aspect of your life. And part of what we're going to do on this show, in addition to the historical information we're going to give out, which, by the way, We're going to be doing a whole episode on the Knights Templar because I think there's a lot of misinformation that needs to be corrected, and I need to do the research before I can do that episode. There are several books I want to read, but I can tell you that the Knights Templar and the association with Satanism is kind of blown out of proportion, and it's not really accurate. Just like much of what we believe about Lilith is not accurate. She's become this feminist icon and this mother goddess figure, which is not true. It's not historically accurate, and she was never worshipped on a wide scale by anyone. And in fact, most women and most men feared her, and she was never seen as a mother goddess in the sense that a lot of these women nowadays worship her. And I'm not telling you not to worship Lilith. What I'm telling you is at least know your history. So I'll be writing an article about that at some point as well. I'm going to be doing research on that so I can give you accurate information, which also that kind of leads me to another subject. Eventually, I'm going to try to get advertisers for this podcast, and I'm going to use the money to subscribe to a lot of archaeological magazines and maybe even take some courses and get some audio courses so I can further my research into academic studies of paganism and pagan cultures so that I can bring you more information. So I'm going to be using the money from advertisements eventually, hopefully, to fund some of my additional education into paganism and related subjects so I can bring you the latest information possible. I mean, I'm really committed to this idea of trying to provide accurate information both in the podcast and as part of the, newsletter that I hope to put out soon, or whatever I decide to put out. I keep saying newsletter, but it might end up being a small booklet. I don't know yet. I'm still trying to decide. I guess it depends on what kind of volunteers I get for the ministry. But anyway, the other thing I want to mention too is that we're going to be starting the interviews up again, and I'll be starting the interviews in August. And I'm also going to try to do a call-in show at least once a month starting in August as well, so that you guys can call in and discuss certain topics with me. I won't be able to do it live because in order to do live call-in show, I would have to change podcast hosting services, and I'm not going to do that. So it'll be a pre-recorded phone call with each one of you, and then they'll be added to the podcast later. Also, that prevents people from calling in and acting stupid, and they have to actually call in and ask legitimate questions. Otherwise, nobody will ever hear it. So that prevents the trolls from messing up the podcast. The other thing I want to mention is that we're going to start trying to do roundtables at some point. We're going to invite multiple guests on at one time and come up with a specific topic to discuss about Satanism. Different people are going to be coming on to discuss it with me. I haven't decided who those contributors are going to be or who those semi-regular guests might be, but I'm working on it, and it's kind of one of the things I have in the works. Also, the ministry is going forward. I've already got my first official volunteers, or at least the first few, and we're still looking for other volunteers. But again, I just want you to realize that we're looking for people that actually do want to work, that actually want to get together offline and are not interested in just online ministry work. We're looking for people that actually want to make a difference in the real world and really do want to be a serious priesthood and do work for their community. So if you're interested in that sort of thing, get in touch with me and let me know that you're interested. But understand also that every person that volunteers for this ministry, we're going to do a full-on criminal background check on every person that volunteers, because we want this to be the kind of environment where people can bring their children, where women can feel safe to come and alone with their children and come to events and things. Also, the other thing is that we want people to understand that we're absolutely serious about creating a legitimate ministry. It's not a scam, it's not a gimmick, it's not anything like that. We're looking for seriously devoted religious people that love Satan and love diabolism and want to see it grow and want to see a tradition and a religious organization be built. So if you're that kind of person, if you're truly devoted and Satanism is your life and it's the main focus of your life, then you might be the person we're looking for. So please contact me and let me know. But as I said, just to reiterate, do not contact me if you're lazy, if you're kind of like a person that just doesn't want to work, Only contact me if you really, really, really are passionate and fired up about doing work for your community and for your religion. Okay? Anyway, that'll be it for today, guys. Take care of yourself. Hope to see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Dark Illumination Report podcast. For the latest news headlines, show information, and more, go to rjwomack.com. That's rjwomack.com.